Hello everyone, and welcome. This is Phoenix Firestar, and I'm going to be bringing you the chronological order of Kingdom Hearts. Now, this first video is going to be both an intro to what I will be doing, as well as a discussion of how some of these videos are going to work. Now, some of these videos are going to simply be me telling the story of what happens as a Cliff Notes sort of style. Because some of these are video only, and I can't record just the video to these. I have to essentially, so I'm not allowed to stream or record certain episode or certain games as it's just video only showing the cutscenes. So I'll bringing you the cliff notes for those ones. Now, the chronological order for Kingdom Hearts is the order I'll be playing the games in or doing my little cliff notes on them. To start, I'll be going over the first one, of course, which is the one I have highlighted on the screen for you. Is a combination Kingdom Hearts cross Black Clover and Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. They are essentially the same games. Or they are the same game, it's just, I believe Cross Black Clover is all the cutscenes to the game Union Cross. Union Cross is the Kingdom Hearts mobile game. So, it will be the first video, or the first cliff noted game I go over. Because it is not playable on my PlayStation 4. Now, I could go through and play for you the mobile game, but I don't believe the mobile game has an actual end to it. So I'm just going to cliff note, the cutscenes for these couple titles. There's only 3 I'll have to do this with, which is Union Cross / Cross Black Clover, 358 over 2 days, and Kingdom Hearts Recoded. The rest of them I'll actually be able to play through and record them. So, the chronological order for these games are Union Cross and Cross Black Clover being the pre-Keyblade Wars for part of the history of Kingdom Hearts. And, the reason I'm going to be doing all this in chronological order is because Kingdom Hearts 3, which I will be playing and streaming at the very end, seems to be very lore heavy. And since it's been a while since a lot of these games have actually come out and been able to be played in their entirety, I will be going through and, putting them in chronological order so we have a complete compendium of the lore of Kingdom Hearts and easy video access leading up to me actually playing Kingdom Hearts 3. Alright, so starting with the first one here, Black Clover, or Cross Black Clover and Union Cross. The essential story for Union Cross is you play as a Keyblade wielder, one of many, who are trained by the 6 apprentices of the man known as the Master. Now, the Master himself, he seems to be very childish in nature, but he seems to know just about everything that's going to happen and what's going on. He even writes a book known as the Book of Prophecies, and that book itself goes over the events leading up to a certain point. He says anything past that point is uncertain. But he's the one who releases the teachings of light. This is back when, from what I have taken from the cutscenes of Cross Black Clover, is a world of all the Disney worlds when they were one. During what is referred to as the Golden Age of or not the Golden Age, but the Fairy Tale Age. Now, the Master laid out his rules and teachings about the light. And knowing that he would one day disappear, he gave no explanation to how, why, or any of that sort of thing for his disappearance. He just told his main 6 apprentices that one day I may disappear. Should that time come, I'm going to give each of you, my apprentices, a role to fulfill in my place. Now, these roles were pretty simple for the most part. First, I'll go into his 6 apprentices. Now, as you can see on the screen with the backdrop there for Cross Black Clover, there's only 5 shown there. There is a 6th apprentice. However, he's not really part of what's going on during this time period, but he does play, his role is given to him during this time frame. So I'll be going into that a little bit. First off is each one wears a mask that symbolizes them in some way. The one on the farthest left, his name is Ira. His role is to become the leader of the 5. He is known as the Unicorn. He is a deep thinker, but he tends to overthink things. But he is the one who the Master has left in charge because he knows he can bring out the best of his apprentices. The one to his immediate right, the largest one of the group, is known as Assad the Bear. He is supposed to be the right-hand man to Ira, the Unicorn. It is his job to provide his leadership when they need it and help spur the leader into action, because the Master knows Ira will tend to think more and not act quickly. The next one is Envy the Snake. Her job given to her by the Master was to observe and provide fair judgment, be a mediator for the 5. So her job is not always looked upon with the best light, but is a needed job as she tries to keep all of them level-headed and help keep their judgment fair. The next one is the Jaguar. He's the one in yellow, and the yellow hood there. Guala the Jaguar, his job, he was pulled aside by the master and given a piece of paper. The master tells him, on this page, it talks about a time period which I don't want the others to know about. That time frame, there will be a traitor among you. Using this page, you need to find out who it is and stop them. That was the Jaguar's mission. And then there's the fox, the one in pink there. Ava. Her role given to her by the master is not like the others. It is the one that relies less on the fact that there's others for her to rely upon. Her job is not to have a union like the others do. Now, the unions are essentially they're guilds for Keyblade wielders. Each one of them is to have a union and pass on the teachings to those in their union, and each one is autonomous of their own, with only the heads of each union being able to oversee each other and not really affect each other's unions. But her job was not to have a union, really. Her job was to, if anything was to go wrong, she was not to pick sides. She was not to go to war. She would always keep the master's teachings closest to heart. And she would pass that on to the new generation of Keyblade wielders who would be the only hope for the future. It didn't matter what union that those Keyblade wielders came from. She was to find the best and the brightest of them and train them for the day that darkness would come and the light would falter. So, with that being said, the story really starts when there is one more apprentice left, but I'll come back to him, since again he's not really involved in this. The time comes where the master does disappear. And the 5 apprentices assume their roles, taking over for him. Some time passes, and Ira, the leader of the 5, brings them together to tell them he has found evidence that there is a traitor among them. And to prove his point, he shows them a little spirit. This little spirit is one of many that every Keyblade wielder would have. They generally take on like the forms of cats and dogs. And their job, essentially, is to guide the Keyblade wielder. However, should that Keyblade wielder's heart fall to darkness, that little spirit becomes a nightmare, which is very similar to what they originally were, but they're all black. Taking on a slightly more darker tone overall. And exude kind of a dark aura. He finds one, and he lays down his evidence of why he believes that there is a traitor amongst the group. But the rest of them find it hard to believe that there is a traitor. But Ira has his suspicions. But he will not tell the others what that is. All save for Envy the Snake. When the others leave, disgusted at hearing that there's a traitor among them, he tells her he needs her to be his eyes and ears amongst the others. She needs to report to him should any of them do anything suspicious, because he cannot prove that any of them are a traitor. However, he has found that there is a page missing from all of their books. And that and that time period that page would be for happens to be at that point when he believes there to be a traitor. So he believes the traitor has taken this page out of all of their books. But he believes that the traitor's book would still have that page in it. And so he tells Envy to keep her eyes open for that page. That which one of them would have that page? Of course, Assad the bear is furious that Ira would call one of their own a traitor. How could he be so worked up and worried about the problems within their group, that he's going to shift his focus away from the oncoming darkness that was said to come to destroy the light that the Master had told them about? And so he breaks one of the Master's rules. He offers to form an alliance with two other members of the apprentices, and ally their unions together. And the two he asks this of are Gwala the Jaguar and Ava the Fox. Ava declines. She would not betray the Master's rules for anything. Gwala agrees on the circumstance that his union is not pulled into it. It is only an alliance between him and Assad. He wants his union to have nothing to do with it. And so, it is around this time that Envy shows up. She, too, had been called there by Assad the bear, and he offers the same invitation to her, to join in an alliance with them to try and talk sense into Ira and find who the traitor is. And Envy refuses, because it is against the Master's rules. Because the Master had said that alliances would upset the balance of power. And when the balance of power becomes upset, someone in the group would have more power than the others. And when that happens, they'd become hungry for more power, thus allowing the darkness to take control of them. alliances between the unions. And so Assad begins to believe that the potential traitors are either Ira or Envy, because he knows Envy reports just about everything to Ira. And she does in fact report what Assad is doing to Ira. And Ira tells her, do not uh, do not directly try and he knows it's against the rules, and he believes that he should talk to Assad to help alleviate his worries. And Envy tells him that it would not be a good idea. That Assad believes that one of them are the traitor. And that Assad himself is not the traitor, as Ira had worried. Because Assad generally worries about the oncoming darkness. And that's what his whole meander into the Alliance and breaking the Master's rules was about. Stopping the oncoming great darkness that would destroy the light. And so Ira agrees and asks that Envy keep an eye on them and keep an eye out for that lost page. Months would pass, and Assad and Gwala would be no closer to finding out who the traitor was. And so Gwala decides, I believe it is time that we end our alliance. And that upsets Assad. And he wants to know why Gwala would end their alliance. And he said, simply because we have found no trace, no clue, no hint of who the traitor is. And he mentions that Envy had pointed these things out to him. And so Assad believes that Envy is trying to tear the alliance apart because she is worried that she's going to be found out as the traitor. So in his fury, he confronts her. And the two of them do battle with their keyblades. And when Gwala and Ava see what's happening, they rush to the aid of Envy, who seems to be under attack by Assad. And the three of them together manage to fend off Assad's brute strength. And he is injured. And he is forced into hiding. Gwala manages to find him once again. And Gwala reveals that he has the missing page, that the Master had given it to him, hoping that he would be the one to find the traitor. And that Gwala believed that it was Assad who was the traitor. And so Assad fought back to defend himself and ends up rendering Gwala unconscious. And Ava, the fox, walks in on this and sees it. And she throws herself between Assad and Gwala, telling with fear in her eyes, and Assad decides that now Ava believes that he too is the traitor. So he unsummons his Keyblade and leaves. Coming back, moving along, he's actually confronted by Ira after Envy tells him everything that's going on. And Assad says, "So you're here to finish me off?" And Ira tells him, "No." And he actually asks Assad for his side of what's going on. And Assad tells him and mentions that Gwala has a page that the other books of prophecy the copies of the books of prophecy that they have, don't have. So, of course, now Ira suspects that Gwala is the traitor. And so he tells Assad that he is not mad at him and that he would still call him comrade and friend. So he actually tries to hunt down Gwala. And being unable to find him, he confronts Ava the Fox on where to find him. And she refuses to give him up. And she can see the anger and malice in Ira's eyes, believing that Gwala is the traitor. And so that is what she tells Envy, the snake, that she is afraid of what Ira is becoming. And Envy tells her that Assad has begun to gather as much light as he can to fight the oncoming darkness. Ira and his union are beginning to do the same to root out the traitor. And in order to maintain balance, she believes that her and Ava should begin doing the same as well. Because as Ava tells Envy that Gwala is going to be doing the same thing. He's going to be gathering as much light as he can so that he can break the rules and summon Kingdom Hearts. Because he believes if he can summon Kingdom Hearts, then the Master will come back and tell them who the traitor is. And Ava the Fox does not listen to Envy's suggestion about collecting the light. Instead, she fights even harder to train the other Keyblade wielders across the unions, the best of them, to fight for the light and become the light themselves, before she spreads them across the world on the winds, her dandelions, as she calls them. And these are the events that lead to the Keyblade Wars. Eventually, they all start to fight amongst each other for each other's lights, for their own reasons. There may have never actually been a traitor amongst the five. But the Master knew that doing the roles that they were given, they would all betray him in the end and bring about the darkness by trying to prevent the darkness, despite the fact that he told them that it would happen regardless of what they tried to do. They could not stop it. And that is the end of the story for these five apprentices. So now I'll be going on to the sixth apprentice, whose story isn't as long in this part, but is very important to what's going to be happening later on in Kingdom Hearts. Now, the Master had given each of these five their own personal Keyblades. The sixth is the only one who did not get his own custom Keyblade, but he did get his own. He's given a very ancient old Keyblade with a big eye in it. He's also given a box and told never to open said box. And what the master tells him is that his eye is in that blade. The master's eye is part of the blade. And so he would pass on the master's teachings to his own apprentice, who would pass it down to his apprentice, who would pass it down to his apprentice. And each one would pass the keyblade with the eye down between them. And through that, the master would be able to see all the events that transpire in the future through that keyblade. And tells him that his job, he knows, will be a success because that is how he was able to write the Book of Prophecies. At least to a certain point, anyway. And so he tells the apprentice to leave. Do not worry about what the rest of the apprentices are doing. You're to isolate yourself and remain separate and observe only. You are to watch the events of the world unfold. And you'll train your apprentice to do the same thing, and he'll so on and so forth. And you will take this box. And when the apprentice asked the master what was in the box, this apprentice's name was Luxu, Luxu. The master told him, but it was not revealed to the viewer what was inside the box. And so when the master disappeared, so did Luxu. He took the box and his gazing eye keyblade and disappeared from the world himself in his own way. And those are the events of Cross Black Clover and Union Cross. So, my next video I will be doing is on Birth by Sleep, I believe. Not this one to the left of Cross Clover. This one will come later. It is just before Kingdom Hearts 3. Because it is actually listed as the prologue to Kingdom Hearts 3. So I'll be actually playing the first Birth by Sleep, which happens just after the Keyblade, several years after the Keyblade Wars. I believe I have a book that tells me exactly how many years is between the Keyblade Wars and Birth by Sleep. That came in the deluxe edition of the game I purchased, of Kingdom Hearts 3 when I purchased it. Here's the book. Alright, so yeah, it's Black Clover and Union Cross. Then the Keyblade Wars happens. Okay, now it doesn't say how many years. It just says a long time passes between the Keyblade Wars and then Birth by Sleep. Then there is a 10-year gap before Kingdom Hearts. And then Chain of Memories happens. And then after Chain of Memories, it's 358 by 2 days. They kind of take place partially during the same time frame, partially not. But I'll do Chain of Memories first, and then talk about 358 by 2. Because a lot of the events in 358 by 2 take place based off the events of Chain of Memories. And then Kingdom Hearts 2 happens. And then Kingdom Hearts Recoded happens, which is the epilogue to Kingdom Hearts 2. And then Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, finally ending with the final chapter prologue, Birth by Sleep. Point 2, Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage, which leads into Kingdom Hearts 3. But this has been the lore for Black Cross Clover, or Cross Black Clover, sorry, and Union Cross. So I will see you next time when I start playing Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. This is Phoenix Firestar signing out.